The year is 2024 and you're watching this report. We've seen this footage before. A Chinese lunar rover exploring the far side of the moon. A SpaceX Starship explodes on the launch pad. A Pentagon briefing room outlining the growing threat from China. But what do these three events have in common? They all happened in the last 24 hours, and they're all connected to the global struggle for lunar territory known as the Moon Land Grab. China just revealed their plan to establish a permanent presence on the moon by 2030. In this video, we're going to see how they intend to pull it off and find out how NASA and Elon Musk are fighting back against the Chinese takeover of the moon. So, buckle up because this is going to be a fun ride. Section 1, the new gold rush. Let's start with this animated map released by NASA showing dozens of hotspots of potential resources on the moon. These are areas rich in helium-3, an isotope of hydrogen that could be used to generate power for cities on the moon or even back here on Earth. Under current technology, the only practical way to extract it is by mining the lunar soil. And the first company to bring that technology to scale will own the moon. Already we're seeing some truly wild concepts for helium-3 mining operations on the moon, like this one, which involves blasting the surface with high-powered lasers to vaporize the top layer of regolith, then collecting the resulting dust and sifting through it to extract the valuable isotopes. This process would release tons of lunar dust into the atmosphere, creating a layer of haze that would block the view of Earth from the lunar surface. That's not great. But I guess you gotta do what you gotta do to secure the resources needed to build the first lunar megabases. But helium-3 is only one of many valuable resources on the moon. There's also water. Every single place that sunlight hits the moon has been bombarded with hydrogen atoms from the solar wind, which bond with oxygen in the regolith to form hydroxyl ions. These areas could be heated up using radio frequency waves to release the water as steam, which could then be condensed and collected. One estimate suggests there could be as much as 600 million metric tons of ice water just on the surface of the moon, enough to sustain a human colony indefinitely. It's like a never-ending glass of water in the desert. Section 2, the Shadow Space Force. While the United States, China, and Russia have all agreed to abide by the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which prohibits national appropriation of planetary bodies, they've kept thousands of pages of classified documents hidden from the public about how they plan to militarize the moon and other celestial bodies. Recently, hundreds of those documents were leaked to the State Department, revealing some truly disturbing plans for what's called the Shadow Space Force. For example, this patent filed by the Chinese government in 2020 describes a system to harness the power of the moon as gravitational pull to deorbit and destroy enemy spacecraft. Using a network of electromagnetic tethers anchored to the lunar surface, the moon itself could become a giant space junk disposal system. Other documents reveal that China has formed a so-called lunar militia, a vast network of civilians who would use backyard telescopes to spy on US military activities on the moon. Perhaps even more disturbing is that Russia is reportedly developing kamikaze satellites that could crash into other spacecraft at high speed, causing catastrophic damage. Section 3, Elon's Endgame. Now let's take a look at Elon's endgame, because as crazy as these Shadow Space Force programs are, they pale in comparison to the genius-level strategy being employed by Tesla and SpaceX. As we all know, Elon has repeatedly said that he wants to build a city on the moon, and SpaceX has even released detailed blueprints of the Starship payload that will make it happen. First, they're going to establish a refueling depot in low Earth orbit, a giant space station that will serve as a hub for transport to and from the moon. Then they're going to build a launch tower and platform on the surface of Mars that will allow Starship to take off and land on the planet efficiently. And finally, they'll do the same thing on the moon, building a Starship launch tower and spaceport that will make trips to and from the lunar surface routine. SpaceX even posted a picture of the ideal location for this lunar launch tower, an area known as the Sea of Tranquility, which just so happens to be the closest area on the moon to both Earth and Mars. This makes it the perfect jumping-off point for flights to both destinations. In fact, SpaceX even posted a picture of what a lunar Airbnb might look like, which I can confirm is exactly what my Martian vacation home is going to look like. Just kidding. That was actually a screenshot from the latest IPCC report showing the projected path of rising sea levels on Earth. And now for Section 4, how this ends. Of course, the most likely outcome is that nothing really happens. No wars on the moon, no dramatic battles between lunar militias. In fact, if the history of Antarctica is any indication, the moon will simply become another place where geopolitics go to die. But let's just assume for a moment that humanity does end up fighting a war on the moon. Here's what it might look like. On February 27, 2027, the General Assembly of the United Nations will hold an emergency session to discuss the growing crisis on the moon. Representatives from around the world will argue about whose resources are being threatened and who is responsible for escalating the conflict. Some nations will threaten military action, while others call for peace talks. Meanwhile, on March 1, 2027, the first asteroid mining core vessel arrives at Ceres, the largest object in the asteroid belt. Its mission: retrieve the precious cargo of platinum group metals that made the asteroid belt worth over $10 quadrillion. As the ship docks with the asteroid, a team of elite space miners will begin unloading their laser drills and other tools of the trade. They're here to make money, but they're also here to stay out of the interplanetary incident that's about to unfold back near Earth. On March 2, 2027, the Chinese lunar militia will report an unidentified object hurtling towards the surface of the moon at 8 kilometers per second. The object is later identified as a Russian satellite, and China will respond by firing its electromagnetic railgun, accelerating a swarm of small satellites to intercept the incoming craft. But just as the satellites close in for the kill, the unidentified object explodes in a blaze of glory, taking out several Chinese surveillance satellites and covering the lunar surface in 27 tons of radioactive space junk. It's over. The race for the moon is done. And now the real fight for the asteroid belt is just beginning. Now here's your call to action. You are the one who has the power to make things better. All you need is a big dream, a good plan, and the courage to follow through. Take a moment to look at yourself. Think about all the amazing things you're capable of. Think about the problems you want to solve. Think about the people you want to help. And now take a look at the backdrop. Right now, the entire world is bathed in the eerie glow of a lunar eclipse. This is your opportunity to shine. This is your chance to make a difference. Don't waste it. Do something today that will make tomorrow better. That's all for tonight, and remember, be excellent to each other. Be